Thank you for joining us for this North Metro TV candidate debate. Tonight we have the candidates running for Minnesota House 37A in the studio, Republican Anthony Wilder and Democrat Aaron Kegel. Both of you, thank you for being here tonight, and we look forward to the debate.
Thank you.
We're going to start tonight with opening statements from each candidate, and to start tonight, Anthony, you'll be up first with your 1-minute opening.
Terrific. District 37A, I thank you for the opportunity to run as your state representative and to be the voice for this upcoming session. The national election has many of you worried and has likely casted a cloud over our state's issues. Don't make the mistake of overlooking the great concerns that the state is facing now. The ability to meet you at your doorsteps has given me perspective and appreciation for the challenges at all stages in your life. Your comments and concerns have not fallen on deaf ears, and perhaps the largest complaint or concern shared is your demand for the willingness of your representatives to work together as one on all the issues that affect us across the board. If you feel that the state has forgotten whom they serve, you are not alone. I have never made a promise I couldn't keep. I will bridge the divide between the aisle. Feel confident that this candidate seeking your vote this election will never, ever lose sight of who he is serving. Thank you.
Thank you for your opening statement. Aaron, your opportunity now for your 1-minute opening statement.
Hi, my name is Aaron Kegel, and I'm running for the House in District 37A, Blaine, Coon Rapids, Spring Lake Park. I grew up in the area and graduated from Osseo High School. Growing up, I spent a lot of time and summers on the North Shore at the cabin, camping with my family, and learned to love everything about Minnesota, even in January. My husband and I live in Spring Lake Park, and we enjoy working on our house, taking our boat out on the river, and spending time with friends and family up at the cabin. We're even lucky enough to just live down the street from our 3-year-old niece and 1-year-old nephew. I graduated, did my undergraduate and graduate degree at UMD, and I have my master's in advocacy and political leadership, which is a uniquely Minnesota program focused on developing leaders who want to make a difference here in our state. I've worked in nonprofits my entire career and advocated for homeowners, workers, and families, and now am a volunteer coordinator at a local nonprofit. I never thought about running for office, but when this opportunity presented itself, my husband and I talked about it and decided it would be a really great opportunity to continue working in public service.
Thank you for your opening statement. Let's move into our question and answer segment. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer a question that's posed to them, and then we'll offer both candidates after that 15 seconds of rebuttal time if they choose to use it. Our first question tonight deals with taxes. Aaron, you'll be first on this one. What's one specific change you would like to see made to the Minnesota tax code?
Well, I think that the biggest thing would be simplicity. I think, you know, as somebody who does their own taxes, it's difficult, and you're always worried about making mistakes and what kind of impact that would have. So I think just, you know, making it easy to understand and accessible and making it more simple.
Thank you for your answer. Anthony, I'm going to come to you with the same question now. What is one specific change you would like to see made to the Minnesota tax code?
I think for residents and for business members alike, I know that they're straining. There's just so much that's on their plate. It's confusing, and as Aaron mentioned, just to simplify the factors for them, and just so that they can maximize their returns.
Thank you both for your answers. You'll always get rebuttal time. It's your choice if you choose to use it. Aaron, would you like any
No.
rebuttal time, or did you want any extra time with
sir.
me? All right. I will always keep asking you, so don't worry. Next question, talking about a bonding project and bonding bills. Anthony, do you want to see a bonding bill passed in 2017, and if so, how much do you think should be spent?
Well, the current bonding bill is still on the docket, and I believe that we need to pay attention to that one. Right now, our first responders, let's take the Coon Rapids Fire Department. They have 2 bridges on the current bonding bill that need attention to. It got held up for whatever reason. Both sides couldn't come to agreement at the end of the session. And if they don't have those bridges, the community doesn't get the response times at the times that they need them.
Okay. You have a little bit more time. Can I ask you how much you think is the right amount to spend on a bonding bill?
It's hard to say. I believe anywhere between $500 and $600 million.
Okay. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you.
Aaron, same question over to you. Do you want to see a bonding bill passed in 2017? And if so, how much do you think should be spent?
Yeah, I want to see bonding bill passed in 2017. Every biennium, the legislature has to come back with new pieces of legislation. They don't carry over from the current biennium. But I think, the thing that was highlighted this year at the legislative session, especially with the bonding bill, was just the dysfunction of the legislature. We needed facilities, public buildings, our aging sewer systems and water systems were being held up by partisanship. And so there's some really common sense solutions that we can enact that would prevent this from happening again, like 24 hours prior to a bill being voted on and no more closed door negotiations. So just making sure that the public has input and can see that is a priority. And so I think, making sure that those pieces pass or those rules are enacted would really have helped this year to get that bonding bill passed.
You have a little bit more time, so I'm going to ask you the same thing. Is there a dollar number you'd put on that or you'd be comfortable with?
I just need to look at the proposals and the needs of the community and see, what would make sense.
Okay.
So.
Rebuttal time if you choose.
Aaron, do you feel that the end of the session could be blamed on either side? Do you believe that the fingers were obviously pointed that one way or the other? Do you feel that one side gets blamed a little bit more than the other?
I think it takes two to tango. And
does.
so, it's got to be something that both sides need to kind of see the what we need for our state and put that ahead of anything else. Because it doesn't matter. It's always, one party's in power and the other one blames the other. And it's something that people are getting sick of in our state.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next question here, dealing with the overall state budget. Aaron, you'll be first on this question. So when you're a state legislator, you will be inundated with requests for funding. There's all sorts of organizations, groups, cities, counties, people that are looking to get funding for projects or just funding for their organization from the state level. And it's not too often that they're going to come back and say, the next biennium, you know what, we don't actually need that funding anymore, or we could take less, give us less. So how would you balance that? The request for funding from your constituents, from groups all across Minnesota, versus the need to put forward a balanced budget with the funds that are available. So how would you prioritize those type of things? Aaron?
Well, I think this is one lesson that I got when I first started grad school is, there's one pie and we need to figure out who's going to get the biggest piece of it, or, do we divide the pieces of the pie up equally? And that's really kind of the decision that we need to make as a state is, how do we cut the pie? And so I think the thing that we really need to look at is what are the biggest needs. For example, bonding, if there is a facility that's crumbling or sewers that are crumbling, that's pretty important, and so just really looking at those priorities, what's the highest on the list? I mean, we all do this in our own lives every day, is prioritizing things, making the best judgment, and then determining where those resources will go. And so I think, just looking at that and doing it that way, and then really listening to the people of my district. I want to have an open door policy. I want to make sure that constituents feel comfortable coming to me and talking to me, and that it's, no matter what side of the aisle that they're on, they feel that they'll have a personal relationship with me. And so I want to be a reflection of the district and figure out, what are the priorities for the people of our community.
Thank you for your answer. Same question over to you, Anthony, talking about the overall budget and the balance between all the requests for funding and what's available there to actually produce a balanced budget. How would you prioritize those type of requests that would come into you as a legislator?
Thank you for your question. The way I would prioritize the commitments would be based on how I was approached. If it was a large organization, there was many members, perhaps putting together a committee, sitting down with them, discussing not necessarily line by line, but what their requests are, what their needs are for, to really truly understand fully what their needs are, so I can better attend to them with other committee members and just different party members, and being able to get more heads together to see how the funds should be allocated and how we can best serve them. As Aaron said, that there's only so much money that can go into the pie, and when you're splitting it up, you have to understand what you're getting yourself into, what their needs and concerns are, and then just plan accordingly.
Thank you. Opportunity for extra time or rebuttal time? No? Did you want any extra
No.
time? All right, let's talk about lawmaker pay and the constitutional amendment that will be on the ballot this fall. Anthony, do you support or oppose the constitutional amendment that would give decisions regarding lawmaker pay to an independent citizen-only council?
Would you mind repeating that one
Yep.
more time?
Do you support or oppose the constitutional amendment that will be on the ballot for all Minnesotans this fall that would give decisions regarding lawmaker pay to an independent citizen-only council?
That's a really hard question. I can't say one way or the other right now. It depends on whatever individual or group that's asking for it. I mean, is this what you're? I guess.
It's, yeah.
So there'll be you have a little bit more time, so I'll flesh
Please.
it out a little bit more. So
Please.
there'll be on the ballot this fall, there'll be a question. It's to amend the Minnesota Constitution so to take the power of setting lawmaker salaries away from lawmakers and give it to an independent council that is made up of a group of citizens.
No, I guess I would not. For instance, the Met Council would be probably an example of that, and no, I would not be in favor of that.
Okay. Same question over to you, Aaron, about this. Do you support or oppose the constitutional amendment that would give decisions regarding lawmaker pay to an independent citizen-only council?
Well, in my job, I don't get to determine my own pay. And so I think it's kind of unfair to ask legislators that because of the conflict of interest that is inherently there. And so, I think that it's a good thing that we take that decision out of the lawmakers' hands and give it to the citizens of of Minnesota, because they're the ones who are putting us in office, and they can tell us if we're doing a good job or not. So I think the conflict of interest with legislators setting their own pay is something that concerns me.
Okay. Opportunity for extra time if you choose.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right. Let's move on then to the next question. Let's talk about the environment. Aaron, are there additional environmental protections that you would put into place as a state legislator?
I would really have to look at specific proposals and what is coming forward. I think that we as Minnesotans enjoy an amazing quality of life here, partly because of our outdoor facilities and all the accessible public parks and lands, and we all love going to the cabin or going out on the river, and that's something that is pretty amazing here in our state. And so I want to make sure that future generations have those opportunities. And so I am all for environmental protections, but I would need to see specific proposals and see how it impacts people of the state.
Thank you for your answer. Anthony, same question to you. Are there additional environmental protections that you would put into place as a state legislator?
Well, this past sessions, we've doubled our contributions to the DNR in regards to invasive species, and I'd like to at least pay attention to that and see where their momentum is, if they're finding ways to counteract any of the invasive species that are entering our beautiful waters. Making sure that our water is clean, pure, and drinkable for generations to come. Being a DNR instructor for the last 10 years has really given me an opportunity to appreciate our natural resources, just to making sure that for generation after generation that they're set up well.
Thank you. Opportunity for extra time if you choose to use it.
No, I think that's something that pretty much all Minnesotans agree on, is that we love our state and the natural resources that we have here, and so I think we all want to protect that.
Okay. Did you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay. Move on to our next question. Anthony, this is about jobs. What would you do to help create an environment for job creation in Minnesota?
I find it very difficult, even going through it myself. Earning small business loans, I understand that banks, it's very hard for them to trust, but I think that working with banks and allowing them to create that inner trust, I guess, with the individual who is an entrepreneur that has a wonderful idea that's trying to break away from maybe their current situation and put them into a situation where they feel independently free, that they can make their own decisions as someone who's trying to create an entity for not only themselves, for their families, but in addition to hopefully that they would have employees and for expansion. And I think right now it's very hard for someone who is maybe a little strapped for cash, that doesn't have too much backing, in their back, that to apply for a loan is just maybe not as good as it once was. So I think in order to create jobs and to give that opportunity, we need to work with our institutions to make sure that people are given the opportunities to express their dreams.
Thank you. Same question to you, Aaron, now. What would you do to help create an environment for job creation in Minnesota?
Well, I think there's two main key building blocks when it comes to developing an economy that works for everyone. And one of them is education. So making sure that we have a top tier education system in our state, both at, all the way from pre-K to college. And so that, and making sure that we have a workforce that meets the needs of businesses in our community. And then also making sure that our community has quality roads and transportation so that goods and services are easily accessible in our community. And so, we need to make sure that our economy is working for those who are willing to work hard. We should look at cutting taxes for the middle class Minnesotans, strategies that will reduce college tuition and student debt and make childcare more affordable for all Minnesota families.
Thank you for your answer. Extra time, rebuttal time if you choose to use it.
Aaron, that was a good answer, but where in there is that going to help create jobs?
Well, I think education, making sure that we have an educated workforce. We've been hearing from businesses that there's a skills gap. And so working with businesses to figure out what that skills gap is and how we can help make sure that workers are meeting the needs of businesses is one of the key things that we can do. And making sure that, goods and services, our roads are key to making sure that goods can move around our state.
Thank you both for your discussion on that. Let's talk a little bit about public safety next. Aaron, it is clear both nationally and locally that tension is high between segments of the law enforcement community and minority communities. How will you work as a state legislator to create an environment to address those issues?
Well, I think the number one thing we need to do is support our our public safety, our police, our first responders, make sure that they're getting all the proper training. There's been a story on the news quite recently about a St. Paul police officer who's kind of paved the way for identifying autism and people with autism in communities, which has really de-escalated a lot of situations. And so making sure that our emergency responders and police have the training that they need, because they're dealing with more and more out there. And then also just, we need to really have some tough conversations and build relationships and make sure that, we're restoring trust within our communities.
Thank you. Anthony, it is clear that both nationally and locally tension is high between segments of the law enforcement community and minority communities. How would you work as a state legislator to create an environment to address those issues?
Thank you. The law enforcement in our community, we're very fortunate here, and we have wonderful men and women in blue, and they truly reach out and they express very much support within local organizations, community functions, inviting the community in. I'd like to see more of that, and just making sure that that they have an open door. I mean, regardless if they're even putting their community into similar situations, understand maybe what they're going through. And I've just seen such wonderful programs that they've been putting together, and I find it a little odd, Aaron, that you say the community, but haven't you received recently negative press in the Star Tribune saying don't trust the police, as you tweeted?
Yeah, that was actually, I think that's kind of funny that you bring that up, because if anybody goes back and looks at the tweet, it says binge watching the show Making of a Murderer. And so, it was maybe not the brightest thing to do, but it was just about that show. I have all the utmost respect for our police and our community. I've had nothing but positive interactions, especially when I was at National Night Out. The police in Spring Lake Park in my own community were super welcoming and helpful, and I just think that that's a really silly thing to point to about the hashtag about making of a murderer.
Anything else you want to say on this topic?
I don't.
Okay. Are we ready to move on to our next question
Absolutely,
then?
yeah.
All right, let's talk about healthcare. Anthony, you'll be first on this. 3-part question, same amount of time. And I would like you really to try and answer all 3 parts of the question, please. In what ways has MNsure been a success? In what ways has MNsure been a failure? And how would you change MNsure? Anthony, you're first
One
on
more
this
time,
question.
please.
In what ways has MNsure been a success? In what ways has MNsure been a failure? And in what ways would you change MNsure?
MNsure's success, once you're in the program, I have heard nothing but good feedback, I guess, from the constituents at their doors. How it's been a failure, it's so complicated. Let's take a change of an address. Having conversations with county officials who, even to do an address change, it's about 15 steps. Takes them about 45 minutes to an hour to change just an address. They have to have separate committees. It's failing in many ways that I recently just met with a gentleman. He's in between work. He's recently laid off and wasn't it's confused, I guess, within his perimeters of where he is with his current health care plan. He's received letter after letter saying that you're not covered, you are covered, you're not covered. And he said every time that he makes a phone call to MNsure, he grabs a cup of coffee and a book, and it's about 38 minutes before he receives attention. And the way that I would change it, it definitely needs to be either repealed or completely rehauled. It's too complicated for people entering new plans, but once the individual is currently on the program and they find their provider, they love their service, and once they're currently on it.
Aaron, same question to you now. In what ways has MNsure been a success? In what ways has MNsure been a failure? And how would you change MNsure?
Well, I think the one way that MNsure has been a success is that it's lowered our uninsured rate. We're at historically low uninsured rates here in Minnesota, and so the one way it's been a failure is, it is very complicated. My husband and I had to go through signing up for healthcare on MNsure, and it was frustrating. I'm not going to lie, but it allows people to get health insurance that haven't had it accessible in the past. Some of the ways I would change it, actually, this is really interesting because there's a lot of new opportunities coming down the pike in 2017. The Affordable Care Act allows for a state innovation waiver, which allows states to really kind of take a step back from the Affordable Care Act and MNsure and really try some innovative new things. And so, here in Minnesota, we have a really strong tradition of being innovative. Minnesota Care was one of those innovations that we came up with. Charter schools, open enrollment. So I think we really know our state, and we can do it. We can make improvements and make it a uniquely Minnesota system that fits the needs of our citizens.
Thank you for your answer. Opportunity for rebuttal time.
Minimally. Aaron, you mentioned real quick that before MNsure, you made at least allusion that Minnesotans did not have coverage, or many Minnesotans didn't. I've also been underneath the impression, and with good conversations with our officials, that agree or disagree that nobody really was denied.
Well, that's not true, because I've been denied health care because I, at the age of 13, had a back surgery. And so, when I went to apply for health care after my COBRA ended, no insurer would touch me with a 10-foot pole. And so that is something that I've personally had to go through. And yeah, Minnesotans, we've always had historically low uninsured rates, but now with MNsure, it's even lower than that. than it had been in the past.
Thank you both for that discussion. I want to keep going so we can get to a few more topics. Let's talk about education next. Let's see, Aaron, you'll be first on this question. Do you support increased access to pre-K education in Minnesota?
I absolutely do. This is a good economic investment. We have our own vice president of our own vice president of the Minneapolis Federal Reserve, Art Rolnick, did a bunch of economic impact studies of early childhood education and showed that it's at least a $3 return on investment. And now there's some studies coming out that it is up to $17, $18. And so, kids who participate in early childhood education are more likely to finish high school, more likely to go on to post-secondary, less likely to become involved in the criminal justice system. And I see the impacts of it every day. I work at an agency that provides Head Start programming, and so I see the 3, 4, and 5-year-olds coming into the classrooms and getting healthy meals, getting basic hygiene. They're learning how to brush their teeth and good sleeping habits, which are things that will affect them through the rest of their learning careers. And so I absolutely think that we should give our youngest learners every opportunity to get a head start when it comes to beginning a lifelong love of learning.
Thank you for your answer. Anthony, same question to you. Do you support increased access to pre-K education in Minnesota?
I am on the other side of the fence as Aaron. I truly believe through certain studies that many of the households and the 3 to 5-year-olds are receiving that attention at home. I believe upwards about 70% of our current young population are already receiving that at home. Now, I'm truly not sure as to why. I don't know if it's a way to approach daycare or costs or what the reason is, but I do see a burden to some extent within our communities as to maybe adding more onto our teaching. Our teachers are, let me see here, adding an additional grade. How we're going to get the young boys and girls to these classrooms? Are the classrooms already filled? I'd like to learn a little bit more. I guess I'm not completely against the idea, but at the same time, I don't see it as being an idea. Just because I feel that majority of the young boys and girls are being read to. They have very active parents very engaged parents who read to them. They go over their ABCs, their colors, their shapes. I believe that most of that is being attended to already at home.
Thank you. Opportunity for rebuttal time?
We had a forum like this on Monday, and in that forum you said that you thought investing in early childhood education was a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
What changed between now and then?
As I mentioned just now, I am against it for the main part, but if I can personally see, this is me, I guess, being willing to at least keep an open mind, that I don't want to say completely and utterly no, but as I see it right now, if the majority of our young boys and girls within our state are receiving that attention at home, I don't see it necessary to invest in it.
Thank you both for your answers. Next question deals with your district specifically, 37A. Anthony, what goals or priorities do you have that would directly impact the residents of your district?
Thank you. I like to pay attention to the residents that are between Foley Boulevard and University. Right now, there's a current project that's going to be projected for 4 years in length. The issue is Highway 10, which is a state road, or a state highway, the small section, which is being repaired from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And that right now is a county road. Now on the other side of Northdale, still on Foley, becomes a city road. But the project is being federally funded. I believe that there's much disconnect. You talk with the residents there, you talk with the business owners there. They never wanted the project, and it could be, and I'm quoting many of them, that it could be 8 lanes wide and still won't fix the problem, because the problem is at the root of Highway 10 and the access points of people coming and going to work. It's a project that's taking forever. It's a federally funded project. It's hard to look them in the face and say, listen, this is how we're going to repair it. This is how we're going to fix things, because right now the project's already being set. And then you look at University in 109th, where the new Cub is. That project was very much done within parameters, within about a little over a month's time. And once again, going back to the first responders, we just need to make sure that they're getting to their locations in a good amount of time.
Thank you. Aaron, same question to you. What goals or priorities do you have that would directly impact your district?
Well, I think the one thing that I've been hearing a lot on the door throughout the district is, not just from young people, but from their parents as well, is the skyrocketing cost of college tuition. I had a dad in Coon Rapids who, went into the military at 17, bought his home in Coon Rapids at the age of 22, and now has two or three adult children living at home with him. And his future daughter-in-law who's in medical school, and it's kind of a choice that they had to make between, paying for school, living on their own, or and so when I talk to the parents and the kids and the 19, 20, 20-year-old, 21-year-old people of the district, that's something that they're very concerned with. At one point in our state's history, it was that students picked up 1/3 of tuition cost, and then the state investment was 2/3. And now that equation has flipped, and students are picking up 2/3, and the state is picking up 1/3. And with a $2 billion budget surplus going into this session, the current Minnesota House still chose to raise tuition on Minnesota students, and I just think that is unacceptable.
Thank you for your answer. Opportunity for rebuttal time if you choose.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, but we're not at the $2 billion surplus any longer. We're at just over $900 million. Is that correct?
I'd have to look at the numbers. Last I heard, it was $2 billion surplus at the last legislative session.
Okay.
All right. Last question that I have for you this evening is a question that we're asking in every debate this year. And let's see here, Aaron, you'll be first on this question. Across America, we are seeing deep divisions between races, ages, religions, socioeconomic classes, and political parties. How will you work to foster a spirit of unity, both in the legislature and in your community?
Well, I think that that's something that is, in the long run, we all want the same things. We want good jobs, we want good schools, safe communities, and we need to think of it, everybody as our neighbors and our friends. And I think, some of that is really lost in these divides and these wedge issues that people are putting up. I was just talking about this earlier today. One of my favorite conversations on the door was with somebody who was completely opposite on every issue of me, and I sat and talked to him for about half an hour, and at the end of the conversation I said, this was really great, and I might win this race, and so I hope that when I do, we can still talk, and I want you to be able to come to me and feel that I'm listening to you. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, this was a really good conversation. We shook hands, smiled, and I felt like that was somebody I built a personal relationship with. And so I think it just comes down to talking to people, trying to look at things from their point of view, and just really taking a moment to try and understand them. And I think, if you treat people with respect and dignity, they'll do the same to you.
Thank you. Anthony, same question to you. We are seeing deep divisions between races, ages, religions, socioeconomic classes, and political parties. How will you work to foster a spirit of unity, both in the legislature and in your community?
Starting with the community, we're very fortunate here in 37A. We have wonderful law enforcement and different first responders that have wonderful doors open. Anytime that you need, they put on such great functions as the night out, and just to keep that wonderful good communication open. From a legislative end, we gotta make sure that we don't close doors, that we constantly listen to them. Our constituents, we don't know how to make correct changes or approach anything without anyone coming and bringing certain entities to our attention. There is a divide But I think with the more cohesiveness, the more doors that are open, more conversations being had, it just creates that less divide, that more understanding of just where each other is at, where you can improve, and just really coming together. It's just been a wonderful experience. I've also had, like Aaron, wonderful conversations at doors, just to say, hey, listen, maybe community centers, maybe gardens, maybe just keep your mind open, Anthony. And I said, thank you so much for your conversation. So it's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you both very much for answering all the questions that I posed to you this evening. We're now going to move into the next part of our debate, which is an opportunity for you to ask your opponent a question if you choose. Anthony, you will have the first option to ask Aaron a question.
Aaron, I would like to know more about job creation and job growth from you. If there is we've lost construction, we've lost mining, many jobs. Do you feel that we can get these jobs back? Where do you feel that our biggest job growth is going to be?
Well, I think that we need to look at it in a very thoughtful and deliberate manner. I think we can't just focus on one industry because my family comes from a mining town. Both my parents grew up in Silver Bay, and the taconite plant just closed down up there. And so a lot of people of that community, that industry is gone. And so we need to look at sustainable and diverse jobs so that if one happens to go by the wayside, that an entire community is not wiped out. So I think really making sure that we have a diverse, sustainable economy that works for everyone.
You have an opportunity to respond for 15 seconds if you choose.
Okay.
Okay. Aaron, now your opportunity to ask Anthony a question.
I was curious if you support paid family medical leave so that new parents can take time to be with their children, and children can take time to care for aging parents without fear of losing their jobs.
I think for larger corporations, it's absolutely accessible and definitely obtainable. When you're looking at smaller companies and the restraints and the constraints that current laws have been put into place to have paid leave, I know that makes it hard when you have to pay 60% of somebody's wage for 12 weeks, 3 months. It takes its toll on a company that's maybe extremely budgeted. Now, it's not that you don't want to help them. It's just so hard because they're not performing the duty that you need them to do. And I'm talking about companies that have less than 30 employees. And it's very hard to be a part of companies right now, and because we're going through that right now, and with one of our employees, and we're going to help as much as we possibly can, and because it's the right thing to do. And right.
You have an opportunity to respond for 15 seconds if you choose.
Well, I mean, I think the evidence shows that businesses who offer paid family medical leave have a healthier, more productive workforce. So it's really kind of a win-win for workers and businesses. So that's I'm very supportive of paid family medical leave.
Thank you both for that. We're now going to go into our closing statements. You'll each have your time for a 1-minute closing statement. I'll let you get your papers and get prepared for that here just for a second before I turn it over to you. And I want to do, though, thank you for participating in our debates today. We really appreciate it. Anthony, you'll be first with your closing statement.
Thank you. Again, it's an honor to be here tonight. Thank you, Aaron. I have direct ties as a lifelong member to Blaine and Coon Rapids, teaching and coaching our youth. My mother graduated of Spring Lake Park High School. I'm a board member to our watershed and other natural resources. This community, its educators, our environment and natural resources, its union workers, our doctors, nurses, our law enforcement and first responders, its small business owners, and our aging seniors and veterans need a strong voice on their behalf at the Capitol. I ask you to choose a leader, someone willing to work for all the interests to bridle the spending that's truly just spiraled out of control the recent years. I will carry a strong presence and never lose sight of your best interests on the hardest of decisions. I ask for your vote November 8th and to be your voice, and I will not let you down. Thank you.
Thank you for your closing statement. Aaron, your opportunity for your closing statement.
Well, I just want to thank you for allowing us to be here, and thank you, Anthony, for having, I think this is great that we get to share our voices with the district. I feel extremely lucky to have been born and grown up here in Minnesota in the area, and I want to make sure that, generations of Minnesotans to come are able to make wonderful memories with their family and have every opportunity to, be happy and love the state as much as my family and I do. I want to be a leader in St. Paul, and my main focuses will be education, making sure that we have our roads and bridges and infrastructure that we need to make sure that business is accessible, and making sure that we have an economy that works for everyone. And so I am really honored to be in this race, and I just hope to earn your support come November 8th.
Thank you. And again, thank you both for coming in and participating in the debate. And I want to remind all of you watching that you can head to northmetrotv.com at any time for complete local decision coverage. There's a tab right on the homepage where you can find all of the races that we are covering this fall, as well as we'll lead you right up into Election Day. And then on Election Night, we'll have several hours of live election coverage reporting your local results for you. This is the only place you will find them here on North Metro TV. For the candidates, the Republican Anthony Wilder, DFLer Aaron Kegel, and Minnesota House 37A, thank you, and thank you for watching.
Thank you.